Insurance, why? Okay. Let's put this down here. And we're ready to go.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Roberto Svagargis, and the topic that we presented today is the modern world's economy reliance on the shipping industry. Our team members are Abraham Terrero Garcia, Lorena Nicolai, Roberto Svagargis, and Jonathan Wagallo. Next slide. So I will start with the research motivation. Our research motivation has 4 points. And the first one is that global shipping is the lifeline of the international business. Second one is more than 10% of the world's goods and commodities transit through Panama and the Suez Canal. The third is the Panama canals connect Atlantic Ocean with the Pacific Ocean. And the fourth is the blockage of Suez Canal disrupt shipment on March 23rd, 2021. Next slide. We have a research purpose which has 3 bullet points. And the first one is the more connected the world has become, the closer the country's economy grows with one another. And the second is global economy interconnects results in increased reliance on the shipping industry and hold international trade and supply chain together. It becomes imperative to survey what the current weakness and the potential relief solution that lie ahead. Next slide. We have a questionnaire, and questions need to be answered or to be addressed. The first one is, how much does today's global economy rely on international shipping, and what incentive questions the incentive growth of economic growth for the shipping industry? And the second is, what are today's most important water gateways in global shipment? What are some measures needed to alleviate the potential drawbacks of the global shipment routes? And the second, next slide. So in our introduction part, we have 3 bullet points. And the first bullet point is, what makes global shipping a vital factor in allowing economic growth? The second one is, our study will cover the importance of global shipping and by looking at some of the important water gateways. And third one is the emphasis on the needs and looks for alleviated options and the current counterparts, also the limitations outside the scope of the business. With this, I'll wrap up and deliver to the second presenter.
Thank you very much. So for our theoretical background, we decided to pick 3 papers from our overall sources that will answer each one of the questions that we have posed ourselves. The first one is on international shipping, and it establishes a clear-cut interdependence relationship between the global economy and the shipping industry. Not one way, but actually 2 ways. They do feed on one another. One of the best ways to explain this is that global shipping intensifies with the activation of growing economies, which means that shipping industry itself, it's important for everybody, but it's especially important for growing economies in developing countries like BRICS. They also make the point that sea transportation accounts for 80 to 90% of all the good trades between countries. The numbers vary by sources. And the only weakness for this paper in on itself is that it is slightly outdated. However, we decided to pick it because it explains really well the dynamic of how global shipping industry works in both periods of boom and recession. And it's a very good parallel to the situation that we're having right now with the recession with COVID-19. Our second paper with our second question, of course, which is about how the canals gets disrupted, or like what our shipping routes can get disrupted, or there can be problems arising. And we decided to talk about the Suez Canal disruption with the Evergreen. As you all know, that delayed the Suez Canal shipping bound for 6 days, accounting for more than 100 ships went into transit. That amounted to 9.6 billion, dollars in global shipping costs per day, which those costs were transited to businesses themselves, not just directly to the government of Egypt. As you can see, the Suez alone handles 19,000 vessels crossing it only in 2020, which is approximately 39 ships a day. As you can see, the relevance of the canals has on itself. They also determined that the causes of errors were human, which it's very important because that means that were errors that were evitable, rather than just natural causes that could have not been preventable. For the third paper, I'm not going to dive way into it because it also became one of our case studies. but mostly it answered the third question of what alternatives exist out there, and we chose to talk about this Nicaragua Canal. The most important points about that paper is that there's a need to accommodate to pre-pandemic increases in global shipping demand, with especially larger ships over time being manufactured. There's also a revitalization of the Caribbean-bound economies where the project be finished. And at the same time, there's some cost limitations and some other environmental limitations that Lorena is going to dive a little bit deeper. With that, we'll go into the theoretical framework, which is a representation of how we decided to bring our paper together. We created this framework by ourselves. We begin with the relevance analysis, aka how important is the global shipping industry for the world. Second, the bottleneck detection, detecting the examples of which shipping routes can be problematic if they get disrupted. Then we go into our proposed alternatives. We start our 2 case studies that we'll dive into later. And then we have 3 limitations on the other side that could be either economic, geopolitical, or environmental. We're not going to dive very deep into it, but we have to realize that each of those solutions or each of those alternatives have some of those limitations attached. With that, I'm going to go into the case studies. Lorena, take it away. You're muted.
Thank you so much, Abraham. So one of our first case studies, it's part of, the Nicaragua Canal and how this whole idea came about in the 1800s. So this idea of constructing a man-made waterway, like I said, has been on throughout the history. Um, like Abraham cited, Nicaragua Canal could be a potential alternative to accommodate the increase of global shipping demand nowadays. This route that is supposed to connect the Atlantic Ocean with the Pacific could bring many opportunities as it will be able to handle larger ships than the Panama Canal. It will also reduce a good amount of travel distances between Asia and America. However, this could also have potential risks like economic risks, engineering restrictions, environmental pollutions, and such risks. So scientists are concerned about the project's environmental impact, because Lake Nicaragua is Central America's key freshwater source. Also, the project's viability has been questioned by many experts and engineers. And they've been going through problems with infrastructure and facility issues. Another problem this project might foresee is the non-diplomatic relations between Nicaragua and China, political instability in Nicaragua, and other unpredictable natural disasters, just like hurricanes and so on. Next slide, please. All right, and the second case study, we will include the Arctic shipping route. The Arctic shipping routes are the sea-based ways used to navigate through the parts of the Arctic. There are 3 main routes that connect the Atlantic and the Pacific Ocean, the Northeast Passage, the Northwest Passage, and which is mostly not so used, Transpolar Sea route. With this being said, these routes have a huge potential to accommodate the high shipping demands as well. However, a warming Arctic means that the routes is increasingly available and accessible for longer months during the summer and spring. This could also be a huge risk for the environment and global warming, as it will risk the biodiversity, melting ice, and polluting the oceans. With that being said, I will forward the slides to Jonathan.
Okay, thank you. So I will speak about on conclusion and managerial implication that we did. So as you see, there's 4 bullet slides, so we're going to go over them. So global shipping is a lifeline of international economy, therefore reducing the potential setback is utmost importance. That means as due to the globalization and nowadays, global shipping is very impactful and on addressing resources and raw materials. And so this is how important it is. Businesses that conduct operating activity in zones where new potential routes will develop can see a substantial decrease in operating costs. This means that businesses that be conducted in countries like where there is new routes could get cost minimization, maybe getting their raw materials nearby without paying that much shipment fees. And the other one is alternative shipping routes and canals are not guaranteed nor immediate, but can provide substantial long-term relief. That means that instead of using specifically one or two shipping routes, having diversified shipping routes can help on how to use global shipping. And the last one is new shipping routes provide business with potential new markets, but also leverage to change outsource production location, while it's fundamentally shift supply bargaining power, which means that having multiple routes can give countries like Egypt or the new Nicaragua shipment countries can get a bargaining power that would benefit them in having a say-so on this shipment routes. Next slide, please. So the limitation on our research is the research focus on shipping routes and canal aspect of the global shipping, but not on other factors like vessel demand, production, materials. And the second limitation is shipping is a whole analyzed on global scale, when in reality, potential alternative has their own interactive limitation. Like even though there are other ways of shipping, we're focusing on routes canals. And our last limitation was our research focus on the economic aspect of global shipping, but it's important to take account that most solutions have attached geopolitical, environmental limitation not covered in depth, just like water pollution, global warming are not have been touched in depth throughout our research. And then last slide, this is the reference. Go check it out and use it as you want. And thank you for our attendance. Thank you.
Thank you very much.